Okay, so today we are going to be looking at slope-intercept form. And I know before break we were looking at making a table and finding input and output values. We were talking about functions, how we can represent functions in different formats. So if we have a table, we can turn that into ordered pairs. Today we're going to sort of talk about how can we skip all of that stuff? How can we recognize patterns and use those patterns to sort of avoid all of that in-between stuff? Okay, so I have uploaded on Canvas a template that you can print that already has graphs on it. Again, if we were in the classroom, I would print them for you and we could put them in our notebooks, but we just don't have that. So there's not really anything we can do about that there. So instead, you can either print this or draw some graphs or just pause the video when we get to that point and add it into your notes or whatever you sort of want to do at that point. Okay, so slope-intercept form. Okay, slope-intercept form is sort of our beloved formula. Slope-intercept form says y equals mx plus v. Okay, it says that we have a way of graphing if we're given something that is in this format. Okay, and this format tells us a couple important things that we should know about. Okay, it tells us that we can find m. That's one of the important things we should know about. And that m stands for our slope. Okay, and it gives us b, which is the other important thing that we should know about. And b stands for our y-intercept. Okay, so slope, like we've already talked about, sorry, I keep hitting that. Slope tells us the steepness of the line. Okay, so how much it's gonna go up or down, how steep that's gonna be. And then our y-intercept tells us where it's going to cross the y-axis. Okay, so we're going to talk about our slope, and we're also going to talk about where it crosses the y-axis. So when we are looking at slope-intercept form, obviously the first important thing is that we can find m and we can find b. So if we were looking at this, finding m and b are no different than identifying two numbers in an equation. So if I look at this, maybe I'll say that m is 3 and b is 7. Okay, so if I have y equals 3x plus 7, 3 is in the m position. So my m is 3. I could also write the word slope here instead of m. Okay, and that my b, so the number in the b position is 7. So m equals 3, b equals 7. There's really not much more to it other than just finding what's sitting in that location. So if I have y equals 1/2 x minus 5, my m would be 1/2, and my b would be -5. Right? This sign, the subtraction sign, it can be a subtraction, it can be a negative. It's telling me my sign, so it's -5. Okay, if I have y equals 3x, okay, this is telling me that my slope, which would be the same thing as me writing m, my slope is 3, but I don't see anything sitting here. Okay, so because I see nothing sitting there, this is really a plus 0. And so my b value will equal 0. And maybe if I have something like y equals 4, okay, now keep in mind my slope, my m value, is always what's sitting in front of the x. So this does not have an x sitting next to it, so that 4 is not my slope. I actually see 0 x's happening in this equation, right? There's 0 x's and then an additional 4. So my slope is going to equal 0, and my b in this case is going to equal 4. Okay, So my slope is 0, my b is 4. So if we can identify those two things, we then have enough information to be able to graph with it. So if we have something like y equals 2/3 x plus 5. So if you are going to copy down a graph into your notes, go ahead and click pause and then copy your notes down, okay, until you get that graph copied in. Okay, but when we go to graph this, our first step is going to be to find m and b. So just like we were practicing, right? Just like we could find m and b over here. So my m is going to equal 2/3. And my b is going to equal 5. Okay, so I'm going to start at 5. Okay, and then from there, I am going to go with my slope. So my next step, okay, so I'm plotting my b. We said this was the y-intercept. So I'm going on my y-axis, I'm plotting my b. My next step is going to be to have my slope as a fraction. Now, ours is already written as a fraction, so we don't have to worry about that at all. Our slope is already 2/3, so we can kind of just ignore that step because we need it to be a fraction, and I'll show you how we rewrite it if we need to. Right? As we were talking about yesterday, we need to do our rise over our run. So from this point, from the b that we made, not from the origin, not from anywhere else in the coordinate plane, we need to go up 2 over 3. So we're going to count our rise over our run. So from this point, I'm going to go up 2 over 3. Now you really only have to do it twice. So you really you don't have to count twice. You really just have to make 2 points. But if you count again, you can make sure that you have a nice line. Sometimes my students will accidentally miscount, and if you only have 2 points, you won't be able to tell. If you make this third point, you can sort of make sure you counted right. So I'll sort of leave that option up to you. Okay, then we're gonna make our line that goes all the way through it. So notice it's not connecting the dots, but I'm making this long line that goes all the way through it. Okay. So let's look at another one. Now that we sort of have all those pieces, what happens when we just want a graph? So let's say we have y equals 1/2 x minus 4. So we're going to find m and we're going to find b. So our m is 1/2 and our b is -4. Okay, the first thing that we are going to plot is our b, right? Our b is our y-intercept. So we are going on our y-axis, right? This one is our y. So I'm going to go to -4 and I'm going to make a point. From that point I made, I am then counting for my slope. So I'm going to go up 1, I'm going to rise 1, and I'm going to run 2. So I'm going to go up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2, and there is my line. Okay, we're going to look at 2 more and then we'll be done with notes. Let's say we want to graph y equals -3x plus 1. Again, we are going to find m and we are going to find b. So m equals -3, right? The same sign, that sign comes with it. And b equals 1. So plotting our b is no problem, right? On the y-axis, I can go to 1. That's no problem at all. However, to consider our slope of -3, okay, to do a slope of -3, we said we need our slope to be a fraction, and currently -3 is not a fraction. So if we ever want to turn a number into a fraction, all we have to do is put it over 1. Okay, so now instead of just having -3, we'll have -3 over 1. So if we have -3 over 1, okay, we're then going to go down 3, right? We said yesterday that a negative number is down. So I'm going to go down 3 and right 1. Okay, so again, I'm going down 3 and right 1. And also you'll notice, just like we said yesterday, that a negative slope is a downhill line, where a positive slope was an uphill line. Actually, I said we're only going to look at one more after this, but we're actually going to look at 2. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. There must be someone out front. Okay, so let's say we want to graph y equals 2x. Okay, so if we have y equals 2x, again, we're going to find our m and we're going to find our b. So our m equals 2. And because we don't see anything added here, right? We said this was really a plus 0, so our b is going to equal 0. So we are going to start at 0, which will be right here in the middle, at our origin. Again, this 2 is not a fraction, so I'm going to make it a fraction by putting it over 1. So now I have 2 over 1. So from this point, I'm going to go up 2 over 1. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Up 2 over 1. And there is our line. Okay, so this is really the last one. So let's say we want to do y equals 4. Okay, so we're going to find our m and our b. So we said in this situation, right, if we had y equals 4, that our slope was 0 and our b was 4. So our slope, our m is 0 and our b is 4. So we're going to start at 4 on the y-intercept. Now, 0 is not a fraction, so we're going to make it a fraction by putting it over 1. Okay, so I have a slope of 0 over 1. Which you might say, well, that's weird. How do we do that? Well, we go up 0 and we go over 1. Up 0 over 1. And this just creates a horizontal line. So whether or not you want to memorize, some of my students prefer to memorize and just know that this is a horizontal line. Some of my students prefer to go this route and always count the up 0 over 1. Either way is fine. It doesn't matter. Okay, but a y equals line with no x will always be a horizontal line. Okay, so you have an Aleks assessment to complete. It's underneath the assignments. Keep in mind, guys, I made this note and I sent an email, but those assignments are now counting as a grade. The reason why they're counting as a grade is because we won't be doing notebook checks and we won't have final exams. So since those are the other ways that I normally assess that we're like having this information and stuff like that, I need to have some other ways. So these homework checks will be going into the computer to sort of make up for those other points. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you're doing your best. You will be able to retake it a couple times. So if it goes terrible, go to my link, sign up for an appointment time with me, and we can go through and make sure that you're good to go and you have your questions answered. Have a great rest of the day.